All right. Okay, so for today what we're doing is we are solving absolute value equations, okay? Solving equations isn't the big part. That's not necessarily the big part. You guys have been solving equations for a while. But absolute value. Before we do the lesson, I want to talk about what absolute value is. So what is absolute value? First of all, how do you know when you're talking about absolute value? What gives it away? Like when you see absolute value, what do you always see with it? Like how do you know it's an absolute value problem? What is always there with it?
Oh, the little.
They look like parentheses, but they're not curved, right? We call them bars. For lack of a better word, we call them bars, right? Anytime you see those bars, it's absolute value, okay? So let me give you a problem that all of you probably will know. You don't have to write this part down. What's the answer to that? 4. It is 4. What's the answer to this? It's actually 4 as well. It's not negative, it stays positive. Why do both of those guys? So what's going on here is something's happening where the top stays the same, but the bottom changes. So this guy doesn't change into negative, it stays positive. What is the rule for absolute value? Does anyone know the rule for absolute value? The rule itself isn't very hard, it's just don't remember it sometimes. So the number in the bars, how do we answer that? Well, the number in the bars is how many, it's asking a question, it's asking one question. How many steps from 0, how many steps to get back to 0, I should say. So let's say we're in the middle. Middle of the number line is always 0, right? And then 1, positive 2, as you move to the right, it's positives, right? 0's in the middle again. So you move to the left, it's -1, -2, -3, -4, right? So what the question asks for absolute value is how many steps does it take for me to get home? So if I'm at 4, how many steps is it going to take to get back to 0?
4.
That's why the answer is 4, right? That's why the top one was 4. Why is the bottom one 4 as well? Well, let's see. -1, -2, -3, -4. How many steps does it take to get back to 0?
4.
There you go. Yeah. Oh, you're going to say that? Okay. So yeah, 4. That's why they're both 4, right? Because that's what absolute value asks. How many steps does it take to get back to 0? You can only take positive steps, right? Why can't I take negative steps? So like if I walk to my door there and I walk backwards, is that a negative step?
No, you're still going forward.
Still going forward, right? It's just I'm choosing to walk with my back. The only way to go backwards is to go back in time. To go back in time. We can't do that, right? I can't stop the clock and make it say 11:20, 11:19, 11:18. I can't do that, right? I can't do it. If I could, then there would be negative steps. That would be negative steps, right? So steps are always positive because time's always positive. Okay? Good there, Sora? Okay. That's what absolute value is. So how do we solve equations with those bars? Well, first thing we got to do is get those bars by themselves. So I always look, my eyes always go to those bars. Where are they at? I want to identify them. Where are they at? That's the first thing. Second thing is once I do that, I'm going to split. Okay, you can see the little arrows at the bottom, split. Okay, one is regular. By regular, I mean stays the same. That's what regular is. So when I say regular, it means stays the same. Okay? And then the opposite. Opposite means different signs. Change the sign. Okay? So opposite means change the sign. Whatever it was before, change the sign. Make it positive, make it negative, whatever. Solve both problems, solve for x, and then if you need to, graph. All right? So let's do, so examples 1 and 2, I took from, I think, a Math 1 book. maybe 8th grade. I took from there. So these aren't the ones, 1 and 2 aren't the ones we're going to see tomorrow, but I wanted to start off slow. We'll build up. We'll build up to the ones we're going to see. Okay?
Just 3 and negative 3 again?
So again, yeah. So my first step, let's go through the steps first. Yeah. Some of you can see the answer, right? So my first thing is it says solve. Anytime it says solve, I always draw a line down the equals. And then if there's absolute value, my eyes go to the bars. So look on the left side of the blue line. Is there anything else outside of the bars? No, everything is on the inside, right? That's step 1. If there is anything else, take care of that. We won't see that until we start doing some problems. The first 2 don't have step 1. Step 2, split, right? How many steps from 0 am I right now? Does this problem say I'm at? 3, right? That's steps from 0. So if I'm 3 steps away from 0, there's 2 places I could be, right? Where's one of them?
Negative 3.
-3. Where's the other one?
Positive.
+3, right? So one is -3, one is +3. So that's what I mean by regular and opposite. One is the regular, it didn't change. The other one is opposite, right? When I split, that's when the bars can come off. And then solve. Well, this guy I don't need to solve. It already says x equals, right? So I get 2 answers. I get 3 and -3. Okay, that's solved. Sometimes it'll say graph. Sometimes it'll say graph. So how do I graph it? Well, I have a number line here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put 0, 1, 2, 3. And then -1, -2, -3. So when something's equal, it can only be there, right? If I say equals 3, it can't be 2, it can't be 4, it can't be 2.5, it can't be 2.9, it can't be 3.1, it has to be 3. So how do we show that on a graph? We show it with a dot. Means my answer is at 3. And then I have another answer at -3, right? So it just shows you that I have 2 answers, one at 3 and one of -3. Okay, not hard graphs. All right. All right, let's do the next one. So the next one kind of builds a little more. Okay, so we got this guy and this guy. So let's go step 1. Step 1 says, on the left side, is there anything other than the bars, or is everything in the bars? In the bars, right? There's nothing in the front. That's what I mean. There's nothing outside the bars. Okay. So I could go to step 2. Step 2 is, how many steps away from 0? How many steps away am I? 10. So I could be at which 2 spots? -10 and +10. Good.
Wouldn't it be 13 though? Because, no.
We'll do that later. Yeah, yeah. Don't worry about the inside yet. We'll take care of that in these 2 boxes. Yeah, we're going to do that. So now bars come off. This time I have to solve a little bit. I have +3, right? How do I get rid of +3? I subtract 3. One of them is going to be 10 minus 3, 7. And the other one is going to be -10 minus 3, -13. So there's my 2 answers. Okay. So draw a graph, 0 in the middle, always 0. 0 is going to go there. So I have +7 and -13. Those are pretty far apart. Those are like 20 steps apart. So I'm not going to draw all the tick marks. I'm just going to draw the important ones. 0 is the one important one. So I have 7. 7's on the right side. Negative 13's on the left side. Which one is closer to 0, 7 or negative 13? 7. So I'm going to put that about there. Negative 13 is about double the distance away, right? It's 13 steps away. 7 is 7 steps away. So I'm going to put about double the space, so about negative 13 right there. You don't have to put all the little tick marks in between. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, negative 1, negative 2, you don't have to do that when they're that far apart. I did it on the last problem because there wasn't that far apart. Dot, dot, you're done. Okay. All right. Okay, so now let's go to this one. Okay. Says solve. So I'm going to draw my blue line. And I got the bars right here and right there. Everything is inside the bars on the left side, right? There's nothing outside the bars. So I can skip step 1. Go to step 2. Separate. How many steps away from 0 am I? 12, right? So I could be at positive 12, or I could be at negative 12. So that's what's going to equal. I can remove the bars now. Okay. So I'm going to do one at a time. So I'm going to get 2 answers. I'm always going to get 2 answers because I could be at 2 different places, right? We said that. We could be at 2 different places. So we're always going to get 2 answers for these guys. Anytime you have bars, you're going to get 2 answers. That's just the way it is. So let's look at this guy here. Okay, so now I want to solve for the variable. So they use b in this one. So when it says solve, remember, we always start at the bottom of PEMDAS. Solve means we go up. Okay? So addition, subtraction. Do I have any addition and subtraction? Yes. I do. Which one do I have? I have a plus 5, right? I have a plus 5. So this negative 5b is being added with 5, right? So what's the opposite of adding? Subtracting. So I'm going to subtract 5. 5 minus 5 goes away. 12 minus 5 is 7. So the reason I didn't do addition or subtraction with this guy, negative 5b, is because it's not addition and subtraction. It actually is going to be one of these two guys, multiplication, division. So my goal now is to separate the negative 5 and the b. So what are negative 5 and b doing? Are they adding together, subtracting together, multiplying, or dividing? It's multiplying, right? We saw this the other day. Number and a letter attached, it's multiplication. So how do I break them apart? You do the opposite. Divide. Yeah, you guys did this the other day. Negative 5 divided by itself is 1b. So does 5 or negative 5 go into 7 evenly? No, right? So don't change it to a decimal. The last question I need is, can I reduce it? Can I divide them both by 2, by 3, by 4? No, right? Leave it alone. That's the answer. Don't change it to a decimal. Unless they ask you, unless they say, round your answer or change it to a decimal, which they didn't this time, leave it. Okay? Let's go to the other guy. Luckily, it's going to be the same steps because the left side is exactly the same. So I subtracted 5. I'm going to subtract 5 again. It's not going to give me the same answer, but it's going to be the same steps. So negative 12 minus 5, negative 17. Bring negative 5b down. We know it's division, so we're going to divide by negative 5. Okay. We know it's negative. So does negative 5 go into negative 17 evenly? No. We're not going to change it to a decimal. Is there anything I can reduce it? So can I divide them both by 2, by 3, by 4, by 5, anything like that? No. The only thing I'm going to do is, what is a negative divided by negative? Positive. So I'm going to make them both positive. Double negatives don't work. We need them positive. That's the only thing I'm going to do. If you put in negative 17 divided by negative 5 on Delta Math, it'll say wrong. Because you can't have a negative divided by a negative. It's going to be positive. Okay? Okay, so last step. Let me draw a graph real quick. 0 in the middle. So I got to figure out where these guys are. I know 7 divided by negative 5 is a negative number. I know 17 divided by 5 is a positive number. Okay? So to help me visualize it, this is the only time I use decimals. I'm not going to write down the decimals, but I'm going to use my calculator to figure out the decimals. 7 divided by negative 5 and 17 divided by 5. So negative 1.4 is between negative 1 and negative 2. That's where the dot's going to go, kind of in the middle. $17 divided by 5 was 3.4. That's between 3 and 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. That's it. So the rest of them say graph, but I'm not going to graph anymore because you guys kind of got the idea of how to graph. It's the same thing every time. So the last 3 represent what you're going to see tomorrow. So the ones you're going to see tomorrow are going to look like example 4, 5, and 6. 4, 5, and 6. Those are the ones that are Math 3 level. It looks the same. It has all the same parts, but it's got a little more to it, right? It's got a little more to it. So that's why I left these for the last 3, okay? Because I didn't want, if I would have put this as example number 1, it's a little much. So I wanted to give you some time to get eased into it. Okay. So let's draw a line there. So everything I do on these last 3 problems is going to be exactly the same as we did on the first 3. I'm still going to use those steps up there. So are the bars on this one are on the left side? Are they by themselves? Is there things in front, things around the bars? There is, right? I have a negative in front, and I have a minus 5 in front and behind it. I have to get rid of those. So again, we're going to start at the bottom. That's a minus 5. I know that one, right? That, the minus, the negative in front, I don't know if it's minus or a negative, right? I don't know what it is, but I know for a fact that the minus 5 means subtract 5. So I'm going to do the opposite there first. So negative 12 plus 5, negative 7. Bring down whatever we haven't used. So I can't go on to step 2 yet because I have a negative in front. So here's the hard part. How do I get rid of that negative? I have 4 options. I can add it, I can subtract it, I can multiply it, and I can divide it. Here's the 2 options that I hear from students the most. Most students will say, oh, add it. Or they'll say, so they'll either say it's subtraction or multiplication. It's one of those 2. It's not division, right? If it was division, you would see division, right? But how do I get rid of this negative? Here's how you do it. If you have a negative in front, kind of like if you have a negative in front of an x, there's actually something there. What's in the middle that we don't write? A -1, right? Sometimes we write it, sometimes we don't. It's the same thing over there. If it's negative nothing, there's always a 1. There's always going to be a 1 there. So now my question are, what are -1 and the bars doing? Are they adding together, subtracting together, multiplying together? Here's the way to tell. If they were adding together, wouldn't there be a plus right there? That's how you can tell they're adding, right? If they were subtracting, wouldn't that be a negative there? If it was division, wouldn't there be like a division symbol like that? Or at least a division symbol like that? There's nothing there. There's only one of those guys that we don't need anything there. That's multiplication, right? Multiplication. So if there's nothing there, it's multiplication. Divide. So since it's multiplication, we're going to divide. -1 divided by -1 makes +1. So there's still a 1 out here. It's still a 1, but it's positive and we don't have to write it. Okay. -1 divided by -7 is +7. Okay. Now the bars are by themselves. Now the bars are by themselves. No, nothing in front, nothing afterwards. So now you can do step 2. How many steps from 0 am I? 7. So I could be at +7. I could be at -7. The bars come off. Last step, get your 2 answers. Okay. Let's do this. I want to do this a little slowly. This one a little slowly. If you know what to do, just don't have to listen to me, just do it. But I want to do this a little slow. So didn't we say that if there's a negative in front of the x like that, we would put a 1? So there's really a 1 here and a 1 here. So x, there's only one of them on this side. So that means I got to get rid of the 7. I got to move the 7 over here. Right? So how do I do it? I got 4 options. Add, subtract, multiply, or divide. How do I move that 7 over there? I'm going to subtract. Yep, I'm going to subtract. Since it's +7, divide by -1. Zero divided by -1. Well, if you don't know that, go to your calculator. Your calculator will always help you on problems like that. 0 divided by -1, my calculator says the answer is just 0. Okay, now do the other guy. Give me the other answer too. What's the other answer going to be? Luckily, it's the same steps. You're going to subtract 7. You're going to not get the same answer, but it's going to be the same steps. You're going to get -14. You still divide by -1. Okay. Okay. We're not going to graph that one because you guys know how to graph that one, but I want to spend more time on how to do these versus we've already graphed them. Okay, so let's go to the next one. We got 2 more. 2 more, we're done. Draw my line because it says solve. Do we got to do step 1? No. Go to step 2 then, split. So here's where it's a little different, right? We're used to having just a number, not a letter. Treat them the same. In math, numbers are letters. Letters are numbers. 4x stays the same. What's the opposite of 4x? -4x. There you go. The rest is the same. Take away the the bars. Take away the bars and continue to do what you've been doing. So let me do this side first. I have x on the right side and x on the left side. My goal is to get x's on one side and numbers on the other. Well, why would I move 4x over here with 5x? Because then I have them both on the same side. Wouldn't it seem better if I moved 5x over here and then I would have them on different sides? So how do I move 5x? -5x. Yeah, I've heard some people say, my last class, well, why didn't you divide it? Because I didn't want to separate 5 from x. I just wanted to move it. Okay. 4x minus 5x, I can subtract those. They both have an x. I get -1x. Last step, divide by -1. -9 divided by -1 is +9. Done. Okay. Do the other one now. Give me the other answer now. One answer is +9. What would the other answer be? Oops. Positive 1, yep. Negative 9 divided by negative 9 is positive 1. So on Delta Math, when we do it tomorrow, 2 boxes. One of them you're going to put 9, one of them you're going to put 1. Don't put them in the same box, because then the Delta Math will freak out. They won't know what you're talking about. Okay? All right, one more, we're done. Last problem, and then we're done. Okay? So the last one is a combination of 4 and 5. It's kind of a combination of what we did on the last 2 problems. Okay? First step, do we need to do the first step? Yeah, right? We have to get rid of that plus 3. So to get rid of it, we do the opposite. Subtract 3 from both sides. Can I subtract 4 minus 3 to make 1? No, because 3 doesn't have an x. If it was minus 3x, sure, go for it. But it doesn't. So what do? You just write what you have. 4x and a minus 3. We done with step 1? Or do we got to keep going? Is there anything else with the bars on the left besides what's in the bars? No. So we're done. That means we're done. Split. So I get 5x, they can come out of the bars now. Here's my question. One of them is regular. Regular means stays the same. So 4x minus 3 is going to be on one of them. How do I do the opposite? What is the opposite of 4x minus 3 over here? It's easier than you think.
Negative 4x plus 3.
There you go. Change the signs, right? Opposite means change the signs. A negative 4x plus 3. Okay. So let's do one at a time. So now I have x's on both sides. I need to get those together on one side. And I have numbers without x's, negative 6 and negative 3. I need to get those together on the other side. There's many ways to do this. I'm going to tell you the way I was taught. The way I was taught back when I first learned how to do this, solve equations, was the teacher said start with the variable. Start with the x. Okay? 4x and 5x and 4x. Keep the big guy where he's at. Wherever the big guy is at, keep him there. In this case, the big guy is 5x, right? 5x is bigger than 4x. So we're going to keep this guy there. So what she told me to do is move this guy over here. That works. How do I do that? Minus it. Do the opposite. It's positive right now, right? Could you do the opposite? Could I move this guy over here? Yeah, you could. It would work. It would work. But like I said, I'm just showing you the way I was shown many, many years ago. That becomes 0. That becomes 1x. Move everything else down. I only got an x on the left side of the blue line. No more both sides. So I'm happy there. This guy's going to stay there. So now I need to get rid of the negative 6. What do I do to get rid of that? Do the opposite. (1x) equals negative 3 plus 6 is positive 3. You can divide by 1 if you want. You don't have to, because if you divide by 1, it stays the same. It stays 3. Get the other answer. Get the other answer, and we're done. It's going to be the same steps we did. Everything in red that you see here is going to be the same as everything in red on the other side. You won't get 3 as an answer, but everything in red that I did here will be the same as I did on the other side. Oh, wait. No, sorry, it won't. Because I got to add 4x, right? It's not negative, it's not positive, it was negative. So I'm going to add 4x to both sides. Said that wrong. And then we're going to add 6 to both sides. And then you're going to divide, and you'll get a positive 1. And you're done.